Hello and welcome to this new video in the SQL section. In previous video, we have seen how to create and drop tables. In this video, we move further and learn how can we insert the data into table. Because unless we have data into table, we'll not be able to view the data or fetch the data. So the first step we will do is about inserting the data. If you have the table, well and good. If not, let us see it once again. And in the last video, we also got introduced to two data types, integer and varchar. So we'll add one or two more data types in this example. So I'm going to quickly write a create table statement, create employees. If you already have this table, either delete it or use any other name. So create table employees. Then we will say table name, column name, employee ID, integer, comma, employee name, varchar 100. Then we can take date of birth now, or date of birth or date of joining, anything that you want. Date of joining. Now date of joining, we don't want either integer or varchar because it's a date. So what you do is you have a separate data type. There are several data types in SQL which are pertaining to date category or date time, but let us choose date time for now, comma. And we'll take one more example. Maybe let's say we have salary. Now salary cannot be integer because there can be some decimal values also. So I'll make it as float. Float means a number with decimal. So you can give both with decimal and without decimal also. And there is also reach as to what is the minimum and maximum number or the limit that you can specify beyond which you cannot go on the either extent, either in terms of the lowest number and higher number. I'll tell you that at a proper time. So these are some columns that we want and a couple of new data types, date, time and float. Now before I create this, pay attention that I want this table to be created in my target database training. Now if you see at the top left corner, just below the menus, there is a drop down for databases. So this is nothing but telling you which is the current database. When you write any query, this query is fired or executed against this target database. What happens is, for example, let me just copy this and close this. Once you connect to your database, by default, your cursor is over here. And if you do Control N, it takes you to the master database. And if you write your query and execute it, your query will be executed against the master database. In this case, if you create this table, it will go in the master database and not in the training database. So for example, let me show you quickly. However, we should not touch the master database as I said, but I can just give you a demo quick one. So now my current database is master. I click on execute, refresh the master. You see the table is over here. But if I refresh the training, I'll not see that the table is over here. Okay, so this is very important that you will not touch the master database. I'll delete this database, table. And the simplest thing is, this is what mostly happens. People forget that they don't realize are they targeting the right database or not. So make sure you are targeting the correct database, training, execute. And now if I refresh, here we go. And if we expand this, this is how your table structure looks like: employee ID, employee name, DOJ, salary. And you can also do right click and design. Quickly, if I have to show you, the same thing appears over here. Fine. Now if you want to, we just simply created this table right now, and obviously it will not have any data. But still, if you want to see how does it look when you fetch this table, all you have to do is right click, and there is a third option in the menu from the top called as select top 1000 rows. You click on this, it automatically generates a new query for you. Now this is select query which extracts the data. We'll learn this very soon, shortly, once we insert the data. Currently, if you see at the bottom, this is the results pane. So in the results pane, you just see an empty output because the table doesn't have any data. It has only columns, the headers. Let us come back. This is my create table statement. Now is the time to insert some data. And I want to minimize this results pane. So Control R to toggle between making the results pane visible or hiding it. Control R again, it comes back. So this is my create table statement. Now I want to insert data. So to insert data, this is where we will learn a new SQL query or a statement now, which is called as insert into. Whenever you want to insert the data, insert into. And as I said, based on the operations, the keywords have been chosen in SQL. So they have thought about this very, they would have thought on this very carefully and have done a lot of brainstorming, I would believe, whoever did that, or bunch of individuals or group. So now where do you want to insert the data? I want to insert the data in this table. So you'll write the name of the table. Now insert into statement is different. Each statement will be written differently. It has a different syntax, and that's what we have to understand. So whenever you want to insert the data, insert into employees, space, then you say values. Values is a keyword in between, and then you open close the bracket and pass the values. So there are 4 columns. I'll have to pass 4 values separated by comma. So let's say employee ID is 1, employee name is, let's say, John, comma, his date of joining was 2023-01, let's say 14. So we will follow a format year, month, day in this way. We'll talk about more in detail when we come to the date section or date time function. And then the salary. So let's say salary is maybe 40,000. So now this is the shortest syntax of insert into. However, we are not going to use this one. I'll tell you why very soon. But let me select this and run. Now I am getting an error stating invalid column name. Why is this so? But I'm not getting the error over here for number 1, for employee. I'm getting the error for John. The reason is because when we write this statement, it assumes that we are following the insert in the same sequence. So what I mean to say is, my intention is to insert this 1 into employee ID, John into employee name, date into D of J, 40,000 into salary. However, even if that is fine, but there is still an error. The reason is because anything which is non-numeric, anything which is not a number, you have to enclose in single quote. That's a thumb rule. So if you've worked in Excel a little bit, you know, when you write formulas, you enclose non-numeric thing in double quotes. The same way here, you will have to enclose them in single quote. So this is a text. We also call it as a string. Text and string means the same. Same thing, you will have to do this for dates also, because date has a separator in between dash, and this is not a pure number. So you have to enclose in single quotes. And now we are good to go. Before I do so, I can come back to that query window and run this query again. And there is no data, which I can confirm. Now you run this and see 1 row affected. So 1 row has been inserted. I'll go back to the select query and execute. What is select query? Select query is nothing but to extract the data. Very simple. So don't worry about this top and all those things which we have not seen. Slowly and steadily we'll increase our reach. So I can redefine this statement in this way. I'll remove the top and just keep it this way. Select the column names from so and so table. I can also reduce this query further just by saying this way. Select star from employees and execute this. What does this query mean now? So the first thing is, head back. We saw how to insert the data. Now we are seeing how to extract the data. So insert is a physical operation which is going to impact your table. It is going to insert a new row. However, select is just a virtual extraction. It doesn't impact your row. So whatever the current state of data is, the current data is residing in the database, which is nothing but save at some location as I showed you. It is going to pull all that data and virtually give you a result in the results pane. Simple. And if you bring the cursor on star, it will show you all the column names. Hence, the meaning of star is all the columns. So I'm saying extract, select means to extract, star means all, from is a reserve word to specify from which table we want, and after that you give a table name. This is the most basic query of select. But as we will progress, we'll see a lot of variations in select. We'll use functions, we'll use group by, we'll use filter, sort, aggregate, pivot, unpivot, a lot of things. Fine, let us come back to insert. This is not the recommended syntax because here there is a problem. Here we are assuming that I have followed the sequence of my table, which means that this will go into employee ID, this will go into employee name, this will go into date of joining, and this will go into salary. But if you slightly mismatch the things here and there, that can cause a problem. So you avoid this syntax. It is never recommended you write this way. The recommended syntax for this is you specify your structure or column names over here in this way. So I'll simply copy employee ID, employee name, date of joining, comma, and salary. And since this statement is not visible in single lines, I'll break this into multiple lines. As I said, a SQL statement can be written into one line or multiple lines. That's okay. So how do we decode this? This is the complete syntax. Insert into employees, which is insert into table called employees. Open the bracket, close the bracket. Inside this, specify the columns in which you want to insert. This syntax also gives you control that sometimes you don't want to insert the data in all the columns, only specify those columns which you want. And you can specify this column order anyway. It's not compulsory that you specify in the same way. But if you want your own order over here, you have to make sure that you pass the values also in the same order. So after you complete the bracket, there is a values keyword in between, then followed by open and close bracket in which you will give all the values that you want to pass in this column. So by writing this, we are making sure that, okay, one is going over here, John is going in employee name, date of joining is going over here, and 40,000 is going in salary. And if you just shuffle this column anywhere here and there, let's say first you had employee ID and employee name and then ID, salary, DOJ. So make sure you pass the values accordingly over there. So that is something which you have freedom of. It's not compulsory that you have to follow the same sequence, but insert the values also in the same way. Now we already have this John. So let me insert something else over here. So let's say he joined in 2022 on November 24th and his salary is 30,000. I will insert this. Now one more row has been inserted. I'll go back in the second query window and run now. So now you see I have two rows. So this is how you do the insert statement. If you want to insert multiple rows, what you can do is just copy this, paste, paste, paste. Let me show you how you can insert 3 rows in one go. And there are 2 ways of doing this. If you want to insert multiple rows in one go, either you copy paste the insert into multiple times, that is one method. Let me show you. But we'll have to change these IDs just for some variance. So 3, 4, 5. I say Aman. Let me take my own name and then one more name. We can quickly change their dates. And I'll change a little bit of their salary also for some difference. So now you see, there are 2 rows. All you got to do is select all of these 3 insert statements together. And when you will execute, all of them will run one by one in the order. And hence you see an output message against every single executed command. So there were 3 insert statements. Each will have its own output message. 1 row, 1 row, 1 row. And let me verify. So there you are. 5 rows have been inserted. This is one way of inserting multiple rows. There is another way too. In this, when you wanted to insert 3 rows, you had 3 insert into statements. So let's say if you wanted to insert 50 rows, you will write 50 insert into statements. However, this is the alternative. You can also achieve the same in one insert into statement. Until here, you just write the statement. After that, you have your values. So let me change this values. Let's say 6. Give any name over here. And salary. Now watch carefully. Copy this portion. Only the portion after values. And this is what? Nothing but a new row. So just comma, paste it. I'll split this into multiple lines. And as long as you want new row, comma, paste, comma, paste. All I'll do now is, I'll just change these IDs to 7 and 8. and just have some values over here differently. Now pay attention. We have 5 rows already. Now I'm going to insert 3 rows. However, the difference in this approach is, if you see, as compared to the previous approach, it is not saying 1 row affected, 1 row affected, 1 row affected. I don't see 3 rows. I don't see 3 different rows for each one in terms of messages. I just see one single message which is telling me 3 rows were affected, means inserted. Why is that? Because every insert into statement will be fired individually, because we have written 3 times in the previous approach. First time it goes, it will return a message. The second statement will go. Then the third statement will go. Now this insert into is only one statement, but we are inserting multiple values in one go. That's why the entire thing is being sent in one batch, you can think of. And hence it shows a message as 3 rows affected. So just some minute differences that you have to remember. And now if I go back, I can see my data. All of the 8 rows. So this is how you should follow some practices about insert into. Keep in mind, don't follow this is because here you're assuming that, yes, I know I have followed the right sequence. But let us just assume that both of these were where-char. One was city and one was name. And if you just vice versa replace the values, you will end up passing the values in an incorrect column. On the contrary, if you write this way, at least you know, okay, what sequence you have to follow. So this is the recommended syntax, and these are some extra bit of information that you need to know. And we also summarize and learned something called as select. We'll touch base on select in the next video. So that's it in this video. See you in the next one.